right, Molo, Sambonani, hello, how's it? Good evening, people, and shalom. Welcome to another episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Hey, man, we're going to have a bit of a short show tonight because, again, this is such, guys, this topic, we've discussed it before. And what I really want to achieve in tonight's episode is to, on the one hand, rehash the logical arguments around, number one, how we got ourselves into this mess, the body of bad ideas that have gotten us into this mess. Number two, the political actors that got us into this mess and how and why we're here. But more importantly, and this is number three, what you, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South African can do to, number one, protect yourself and your family, and number two, with a basket of good ideas, liberty-orientated ideas to push back against the bad government policy that is creating the mess that we're in right now of South Africa, basically, or at least for the average South African, basically on a day-to-day basis, having 6 hours of rolling blackouts in this country, with Eskom having announced in the last 2 days that now they're implementing stage 6 of their, quote, load shedding, a euphemism which I detest because it's so politically correct. What it is blackouts, rolling blackouts in this country. Effectively, we've normalized the situation in this country where we almost play tag. You're it. You have electricity for a while until we chase, and then tag, you're it. You now get to have some electricity in this country. That is the clown world situation that we have come to normalize in this country. So we're gonna have that conversation for the next 15 to 20 minutes with my guest, who is, of course, from the Free Market Foundation. That's Martin van Staden. Before we get to that, homie, in a second, let me just make sure you guys can hear me quite clearly. Otherwise, it would have been the last 5 minutes of me just chatting away into the ether here. Welcome to it. Good evening. This is the Big Daddy Liberty Show. We come to you every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. here on the BDL Show. Guys, with that being said, and before I get to my guest, as I said, some exciting stuff going to be launched in a couple of days on the 1st of July as we begin to broaden up the show a little bit and to offer an alternative media space that is desperately needed in this country. Lots of exciting announcements, are coming your way. Maybe a little bit of a silver lining in the body of bad news that we South Africans are enduring at the moment. But anyway, speaking about those bad news, let's get back into tonight's topic. As I said, we unpack the crisis, the role players in it, their ideas, which are bad ideas that got us into this mess in the first place. And of course, we look at what exactly, as I said, we as families, and of course, we as society, when we band together with good ideas, what we can do to push back against these bad ideas, push back against the bad policies, and of course, implement a situation where every South African has energy security and South Africa as a country has energy independence. That's what we're going to have a brief conversation tonight as I bring on my guest, as I said, Martin van Staden. There he is, popping up on screen. Martin, good evening.
Hey, Shigle, thanks for having me. And hey, everyone, on this cold and, for me at least, dark evening in South Africa. So let's unpack the absolute nonsense that we find ourselves in.
Dude, I feel like most South Africans at this stage are like that character. Is it Bane from the Batman movies? We're made in the dark. All we need is like those masks to walk around. You merely adopted it, yes. But yeah, no, dude. Look, we're in a big mess here. The CEO of Eskom in the last 2 days basically saying, "Hey, man, you can almost sense an inner resignation in his tone to say, hey, man, that's it. These people are out on strike, which is a difficult situation to manage as things are, because Eskom is already in a dark hole, excuse the pun, but a mess in a sense. Talk to me, again here, Martin, as I formulate a question, talk to me about how unsurprising it is that this toxic mix involves politicians, rent seekers, and of course, companies that are under the tutelage of politicians and unions, all of whom happen to be left of spectrum.
Yeah, look, this whole situation is a result of socialist, centralist thinking. There is no, it's not the stupidity of the ANC. I mean, everyone is always so keen to say, oh, they're incompetent and they don't have the engineers have left. Yeah, sure, that's part of the issue, but none of that would be a problem if Eskom wasn't a monopoly. If it was subjected to competition, we would just be reading about, oh, it's SAA, which is getting another bailout, but okay, we can live with it. With Eskom, which has this monopoly, we can't live with it. I have an extremely expensive UPS right behind me that most South Africans couldn't afford, and it's only by the grace of that I have a single lamp on in my house. So I mean, it's ridiculous, and it is the result of socialism. And the more pressing issue here, and I say this with all due respect to the CEO of Eskom, who seems to be trying his best, but no one seems to be taking this seriously. Everyone is, I think we'll get into this later, but the official opposition and the media are using the term, it's a disaster, it's an emergency, but yeah, you could have fooled me. The rollout of the 100 megawatt thing that Ramaphosa and Mantashe announced 2 years ago about, that's been very slow. Only recently have we seen reports that some land has been made available to these guys, and of course, all of it is renewable sources, which I'm the greatest fan of. I think solar is great. I think it's all brilliant. But guys, we need something bigger if this is an emergency. I think it's an emergency. I don't think the powers that be agree with me. The DA in its statement the other day, and just to preface this, I agree with basically the DA's whole policy on this, with the exception of this one thing. And they're criticizing Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Energy, for his preoccupation and his commitment to coal and nuclear. And I'm like, what commitment do they have to coal and nuclear? There hasn't been a new coal-fired power station since this emergency started. Kusile and Medupi were apparently built a few years ago, and they're not even functioning. There's no talk of even expanding South Africa's nuclear power. There's no commitment in the government to these really sustainable energy sources. And the IRP, of course, requires that all the private entrants into the field now who are generating these 100 megawatt projects, they have to be renewable sources. Can't have natural gas. It's going to have to be solar. It's going to have to be wind. And that's great. That's great. It's just not enough. It's not enough for the situation we find ourselves in. So no one seems to be taking this as seriously as it demands.
Well, let me come in there because, again, not firstly, full agreement on the lack of urgency. I mean, there's a great deal of talk around this at the moment. There's a great deal of talk, as all politicians do. But in real terms, the difference between talking about something, which is a stage we passed in well over 10 years ago already, versus doing something about it, we haven't quite closed that gulf yet in this country. And let me be precise and specific in this regard. You know, we have a situation where right now, Martin, those who do the loudest talking do so as if the ideas they're peddling when they say something haven't been tried already. In other words, the ideas themselves aren't the very reason we're in the mess that we're in now. Let me be precise, as I said, and even more specific. The idea that, of course, government controls everything, or everything has to happen on the pace of a body of state officials in the Department of Energy, whatever it is now. That politicians have to be involved, that the big government, the big state, has to determine and dictate the pace of this thing. That's the very reason why we're in that mess. Then you have a party like the DA right now, who, as you alluded to earlier on, almost take it to its logical and illogical conclusion by saying, well, you know, if we're going to get the government involved, how about you just give them expanded powers like we did during the spicy cough and declare Eskom a state of disaster and hope for the best there, because maybe that'll help. Give the same politicians who messed this up, give them unfettered powers on this. Have the DA not learned the lesson of what it looks like to put a country under a state of disaster?
Yeah, look, I think the messaging there is terrible, because I know what the DA is trying to go for here. And I mean, full benefit of the doubt. They're saying that, listen, the sector is overregulated and we need to have a state of disaster so that we don't have to comply with the legal barriers anymore. But I mean, don't call your police force that you want to establish in Cape Town the Gestapo, for instance. The DA wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't it do that? Because the term Gestapo has now a loaded meaning in the world for good reason. Now, don't use the term state of disaster, ladies and gentlemen, when the government has tried that in very recent memory, and in the process destroyed our economy in ways
That's right.
that even the most ardent socialist couldn't have done in such a short period of time. Do not declare a state of disaster for anything ever again in this country, please. But what the DA, of course, I think can do is stop throwing the ball to Pretoria and saying, guys, declare this or exempt us from that. Just bloody build the damn things.
That's right.
Now, it's true that that may be illegal, but the law allows you, if you're walking past a car and you see a child in the back seat dying of heat stroke, you are allowed to break that car's window. It's an illegal act. It is completely unlawful. You're allowed to break the window, take the child out. And the court, if you're taken to court, will say there was a case of necessity. There was a necessity. It was an emergency. You had to take action. You did not have a choice. You had to take action. And I think it's gonna be complicated, but I think there is a big argument, a strong argument to be made for DA governed municipalities, which many of them have the financial resources to, because the DA does a competent job at governing. They have the financial resources to say, listen, NERSA, Eskom, guys, you're taking a little bit too long and our citizens are sitting in darkness. What we're going to do while you scramble around in the dark is we are going to allow companies to start establishing coal-fired power stations, nuclear power plants, and solar plants, and whatever have you, in our provinces and in our municipalities. We're going to let them do that without getting permission from NERSA. Why are we doing that? Why are we acting illegally? Because it's necessity. We do not have a choice. It's an emergency. We have an exception. Common law recognizes that when there is an emergency situation, we are allowed to take this type of action. And I mean, okay, so a guy on Twitter, a DA staffer, said someone might go to jail. Well, you know, there's few things that win you as many votes in South Africa as being a martyr for actually standing up for yourself. I mean, I don't want any of them to go to prison, but if a high-ranking DA guy goes to prison, they're gonna get 10 extra percentage points in 2024.
I made this exact point online to say, you know, that this idea, in fact, the very tweet I did was, it's all bets are off at this stage. Once you have a situation where for the second time, in quite a while at least, but in the second time after already an extended period of load shedding, you then are plunged into a deeper state of things. In other words, simple English, it's getting worse, it's not getting better. All bets are off. And you should have a situation where, on the one hand, the individual has a responsibility in this instance. And of course, government at the most local level possible, at the most accountable, at least theoretically, level possible, has a responsibility in this. And in each case, Martin will discuss that, but we're focusing on the local government now. I agree. It's better to ask effectively forgiveness than permission. Build the damn things, allot space for private sector individuals who want to provide the electricity. Let them come, let them do that. Insofar as, for example, a video I shared on the Big Daddy Liberty Facebook page, I showed the community of Aranya not waiting for the state, not waiting for government, literally fellas in that community saying, you know what, let's band together as a community, chip in some money, and we build, or rather we install our own solar panels, and effectively what will eventually be, for them at least, an independent grid of sorts to power their community. Nothing stops the rest of the country from doing that same thing. Because the usual argument, Martin, and this is why I want to come to you, the usual argument, especially when it comes to poor people, is, oh, but those poor people, they'll never be able to afford any of this stuff. Meanwhile, this is the template. South Africans are expert savers insofar as the stock fell mechanism, I made an argument. Why don't we see communities and encourage communities? And indeed, it's something I'm looking to even campaign around, to drive around the country, especially in poorer communities, and say, hey, we can form a stokvel as a group of, let's say, 100 or 200 residents in a particular informal settlement or a township, where you guys put money together, and if not fund each other's solar panels, at least fund a community one that can keep basic lights on, or whatever the case may be. These are the interventions, these are the solutions that the individual and really families can take in place in order to stave off load shedding. Martin?
Yeah, look, there's strength in numbers, and that's just an inescapable fact. Yes, South Africa is a poor country, but when you have a community of 15,000 people, a poor community, you're gonna have the resources to at least put on the street lights, which is in South Africa is absolutely necessary. You don't need an inordinate amount of power to keep on every house, but if there's just enough money to get enough solar panels up to power the street lights that go between the houses, I'm gonna call that a win. That's a huge win. That'll make that community safer during the time of its greatest vulnerability, when all the lights are off. Now, I mean, look, I'm almost in a state of constant bewilderment at how people are still waiting for the ANC government in Pretoria to help them. I cannot understand it for the life of me, because they are not coming. They are not coming. They are not coming to help anyone. They're going to try and help themselves, and they're going to fail with that as well. They're not going to succeed in helping themselves, and they're certainly not going to care about anyone else. And that means stop asking, stop waiting, stop looking to the union buildings. Look to yourselves, your communities, and understand that there is strength in numbers. Throughout human history, you've seen poor communities coming together to solve their lot for themselves.
That's right.
Collective action is insanely powerful.
And Martin, I must add here, sorry, just as a quick bookmark, stop listening to the negative Nancy's. Trust you me, the moment you start putting forward intervention solutions, arguing that people should build a sense of unity, from that unity, organizing them, from that organizing, mobilizing them to act, the moment you start mentioning that sort of formula around how you can rally people, there'll always be those individuals. There's two camps. Oh, either the wait for government camp, or B, or it's too expensive. It's too expensive. You know, it'll cost you R500,000 or 300,000 Rand or 200,000 Rand. Guys, I get that it's expensive, but that no one says that a solution like this one is to install a full system that powers the house from A to Z. No, maybe you put up solar panels for a community that just puts on a light at the gate for every home, or a light, as Martin said, I keep saying Marius, as Martin said, for the community. No one has to power up the whole house. But what you want is a situation where you build a sense of community. You rally families in this country to do something, as opposed to sit back and go, oh, it's true this, or it's true that, or wait for government. Martin, I'm sorry I cut you short, but your final thoughts on this as we then look to wrap up.
Yeah, look, so on that point, it's important that it happens somewhere. So it doesn't, not all communities have to do this immediately. The moment that Orania pulls it off, and they've said that they're going to assist other communities to get the similar system going. The moment one or two communities around South Africa start successfully doing this, then that is going to set an example for the rest to take it. Now, you make an extremely important point here, and that is that when this happens, keep your eye on the prize, because I'm telling you, the moment that happens, the moment, let's say, Orania helps a community in the Eastern Cape to do this, the EFF and the ANC are going to be on the ground. They're going to say this is an act of racism, imperialism, or what have you, and it's wrong, and it's white
Privilege.
saviorism, or
remember the famous white privilege.
Yes, it's gonna be something, and you shouldn't be taken in by that. And I'm sorry, I don't want to drag this out, but someone else made the point about Orania's installing that power system, and a bunch of the people commenting on that were saying, why are you trying to learn from white supremacists? We're beyond that. It's like, guys, we're sitting in the dark. I don't care if the literal Nazi party lands in South Africa and says, here's a solution to your power that's actually workable. I'm not going to endorse their ideology. I'm going to take the solution and I'm going to implement it. That's the one important point. The other important point is Do not stare yourself. This is a point for bigger companies. Please do not cut out coal. Do not cut out natural gas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of natural gas in the Karoo. I know a lot of AfriForum people are going to be very upset with what I'm about to say. Frack the Karoo. Get the natural gas. We are in an emergency, ladies and gentlemen. We need power. The moment the lights are on, then I'm all for it. We can sit around a table. We can discuss green energy. I don't hate nature. I love nature. I want to protect nature. But when people are starving, when people are being raped in the dark because the lights are out, we cannot have that conversation. We need to have the lights on, and then we can have the conversation. And then just my last point, Sigle, is
Go
that
ahead.
the DA has very good ideas about how to solve the power situation. They want to privatize Eskom. They want to liberalize regulation. Great ideas. They want tax rebates for people who have solar systems in their homes. I love it. I'm there for it. The two things I want to say to the DA: number one, lead by example. You govern a bunch of provinces and one province and a bunch of municipalities. Give people rate rebates on their municipal accounts if they have solar panels. Lead by example. Do that. You're going to win votes with that. Number two, and the DA, I'm sorry, you got to drop the renewable obsession. I just made this point, but specifically to the DA, drop the renewables obsession. We need to get out of this emergency. And the moment you drop that, the moment you say, let's not discriminate between sources of power, let's just get the lights on. Just get the lights on. Then we can have the more academic debate about how to conserve nature. That's fine. But to the DA, it's excellent policy points, but these lead by example. Take the initiative. Stop waiting for Pretoria. They are not coming. They're not coming to help you. Stop waiting. Take the initiative and drop the obsession with renewables, guys.
Absolutely.
It's an emergency, guys. It's an emergency. Let's grab it by the horns. Let's solve the emergency, please.
Absolutely. That, of course, is Martin van Staden from the Free Market Foundation. Brother, really appreciate it. How do the folks find you on your social media?
Yeah, so my first port of call, go to martinvanstaden.com. That's my website. You'll find all of my links, articles, media appearances there. On Twitter, you can follow me at Martin_ASFL. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Martin van Staden Liberty. That's one word. And that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. Super appreciate that. It is Martin van Staden, of course, from the Free Market Foundation. And really, this will be my last gasp on this as we say goodbye. Guys, the individual and families. I talk a lot about the individual because I'm a libertarian, classical liberal. I always say the individual, but really we're a family society. And insofar as the effects of load shedding, it is families who are impacted the worst on this. So families should be at a minimum banding together in a community and acting together along the lines of thinking of creative ways to get or to keep the just lights on. You don't have to power everything for now, just the lights on. Maybe you can band together as a more upper middle class or middle class community to fund each other's solar panels, a basic system, something just keeps lights on. Doesn't have to power the whole house, doesn't have to have a fancy schmancy this and that, but maybe you begin there. As a poorer community, maybe you band together, you build a few or you rig a few street lights to be powered by solar and battery energy when it's time for load shedding. The point is we need to start thinking much more creatively as South Africans in how to circumvent, avoid, if you will, the bad government policy, the bad government decisions that affects our quality of life. We need to start doing this, guys. And I always say it on the show, and a reminder to you, if you want to rally people, it's a 3-word formula. Number one, you rally people around a sense of unity, a shared idea, a shared proposal, something you can all stand for. Unity is super important. The second thing is once you're united, you build a sense of organizing. What skills do you have? I have these skills. You organize each other, you find out what your strengths, your weaknesses are, and only once you have a strong command over that can you then mobilize people to act. And acting can be on the weekend, the guys who are electricians helping sort out, install various systems, or whatever the case may be, whatever solution works for you. We need to begin to start encouraging each other, South Africans, to take action in our own hands. And with that being said, let me also give credit where credit is due. The city of Cape Town, insofar as I last read, is doing exactly that. They're taking action to protect their citizens, their residents rather, in that city. The mayor of that city, Jordan Hill Lewis, having announced, I think yesterday or today, that they're at a relatively advanced stage in terms of procuring their own independent power that will feed as much as, I think, 400 megawatts or 600 megawatts into their local grid, effectively making Cape Town the first metro that will no longer have load shedding. These are the sort of leaders, these are the sort of people that I think we need to be as South Africans, as opposed to the negative Nancys or the people who wait for government and the state to fix their issues. But hey, let me know what you think. Let me know what you've done, for example, in your home. Maybe you've set up a solar system, an expensive one, or maybe you've found a way to set up a cheap one. I don't know. Share those ideas, please. Share those ideas so that everybody else who reads the comments can actually copy and learn from them. Maybe you're a business that is in some form of alternative energy or alternative means of powering a home. Maybe you sell generators or you sell solar or whatever the case may be. Put your details in the comments as this video, when you're watching this video after this live broadcast. Guys, let's talk to each other. Let's build that unity. From that unity, organize each other, and from there, mobilize each other to act. With that being said, thank you for watching, my dear faith, flag, family, and freedom type South Africans. I really appreciate it. Hit that like button on your way out. And a reminder, please, as I always say at the end of every show, never trust a commie, especially when they plunge you into darkness.